Hey y'all, I'm Christine Lee and I'm an application engineer here at Inductive Automation. And I'm doing this because I wanted to sit down and talk to the seasoned veterans of this industry as a relatively young engineer in this industrial automation industry. I believe there's something truly special about hearing the stories, the challenges, and the savory and sweet triumphs of the veterans in our ecosystem. And there might be food puns and a little bit of theming going on. If you hear that, pick it up here and there. One, I love food, and two, I kept saying seasoned veterans, so it kind of stuck with me. And three, I have a food and beverage background, so if you hear things brought up here and there that's related to food, that's why. So anyway, let's dig into the meat of things. Today I have the pleasure to introduce you to Mara Pillott, Manager of Application Engineering here at IA. She's got a feast of experience to share with over 20 years in tech and nearly 15 years with inductive automation. And I'm really excited to have you, Mara, with me. Not only because you are my direct manager, but I always feel like you share such interesting stories from your career and what you've done in this industry. And I'm really excited to be able to share it with the public. So, Mara, I'd like for you to introduce yourself a little bit, and I'll start asking you little questions here and there.
Sure. So I'm Mara. Christine gave me an introduction. I've been working with Ignition software since I think 2010. I started with Steve Heckman's integration company, Calmetrics. And at some point I became an inductive automation employee, but that felt pretty seamless to me since I was still working with Ignition. We have two application engineering managers here. I'm one of them. And that role just grew over time. When I first started, I was a design services engineer. So some people might have worked with me directly, as customers. But go ahead, Christine, ask your questions.
Well, you kind of started getting into my first question, which was, how did you get started in this industry?
So I always tell this story about how I was in this job, I was miserable, I was looking for a new job, and I answered this job ad, and I didn't know what a PLC was. And that's true. I really didn't. I didn't know what a PLC was. I didn't know what SCADA was. But there is a little bit of background there that I haven't talked about a lot. So I want to tell that story a little bit. Right out of college, I went to work for this fiber optic manufacturing and design company in the Bay Area. And what my team was doing was implementing an ERP system. So that's not quite the same thing, at all as what Ignition does, right? But what we were doing was we were going through this facility and we were learning how everything works and how the departments work together. And, we were talking to people in customer relations. We were developing a system to get orders in, to make a bill of materials, know what products that we would need, and work with, the vendors and work with purchase orders, and then work with billing, invoicing, shipping. So I got to go around and really learn about how this facility worked and implement that with software, which is something I love doing. I love applying technology to real world situations. And I got to work with these amazing people. I was so young. I definitely had imposter syndrome. I think a lot of us feel that. And it's just this international team of really, really talented people. And I learned so much. I loved that experience. And one day we were going to build an MES system, but the recession was coming and that nobody was doing well, right? So everybody was getting laid off. People were looking for other jobs. And I left that job before I could get into that piece of it. The other thing that was happening there that I'm going to get back to is we were working with this software package and you could customize it, but there were limits on how much you could customize it. And it could connect up to databases. We were working with a SQL database. It had no machine connectivity the way that Ignition does. This was just ERP. And you could upgrade it, but it was tedious. And when you went to install it, I think it was like at least an hour per machine. Like we would walk around with these CDs and we would do all these upgrades and we had this like 3-page set of instructions. So it's pretty tedious. Now, fast forward, I've gone through a couple different jobs. I'm looking for this job. I see this ad and I go and I visit this website and I start learning about this ignition software and I start looking at case studies. And I got pretty excited that, wow, like this is like the show How It's Made. You know, these guys go into factories and they hook up to all these machines, and or even something like tracking where trucks are, you know, as they're delivering supplies. And then you could download the software package for free, like you can today. And I downloaded it and installed it. And, you know, I had been struggling with the same thing we all struggle with, right? You can write something from scratch, but that's difficult and it's hard to maintain. Or, you know, you kind of get something off the shelf, but customization and upgrades are difficult. And I thought, man, this software, like, I don't have to like make a connection to a database. It's there, super easy. I don't know what these PLCs are, but I can see that this is a pretty amazing thing out there in the world. And there's all these drivers here that can hook up to these things. And there's all these tools for building these screens. And I thought, I want in, I want to work with this stuff. Like, this is better than any software package that I've worked with so far in my career. So I took that enthusiasm to that interview. I met Wendy Lynn Heckman at that interview, and we, you know, really had this great connection. And I think she could see that I wanted to be there. And I met Paul Falgren and Steve Heckman and some of those other early people. And that's how I got started. You know, next thing I knew, I was working with Ignition, you know, for customers.
I kind of giggled when you brought up How It's Made, because I remember just like binging that when I was little on YouTube. And then also like in college when I was working on stuff. And it was kind of like background noise, but it always just intrigued me because, yeah, it's like so fascinating to see like how things are made. Yeah. One of the things that I like asking people in this industry is like, how did you even get into like industrial automation? Because it's one of those fields that when you're in it, you know it's there. But I did computer science in college, and same. Yeah, like you too. Is like industrial automation. Like, what is that? What is a PLC? What is a SCADA? What is an HMI? Same questions that I had when I got into this field, which like I stumbled upon this field where I answered a panic apply to an internship for automation engineering, and they were like, you know what an HMI is? You know what a SCADA is? You know what a PLC is? Nope. No, but I can code. You need a Python code? I can do that. So yeah, I know you've told me this story about how you fell into this industry before, but I just find it like a fascinating thing to talk about with you, especially because we have that shared experience of really falling into this industry without knowing it. And I have a feeling that other people also have or also share the experience of like, I don't know what industrial automation was, but I got into it and now I love it. And it's fascinating to hear about that. So what were your initial impressions of the industrial automation world? And was it what you really expected going into it?
It was not what I expected whatsoever. So I thought that there was these very sophisticated companies and they were going to have these very sophisticated systems. And that's not true. There's a lot of big companies that were still using clipboards and Excel, and we've even done some Microsoft Access conversion. So it was not what I thought. I also didn't know, like how outdoors it would be. I mean, I was prepared. Wendy did prepare me, and I was told to go out and get myself some steel-toed boots, and I was issued a hard hat and a vest. My first job did not involve a bucket yet. That happened though. Everybody winds up sitting on a bucket at some point. I was in a construction trailer. So at least we had air conditioning. That was important. But we were at this winery that was pretty much not built yet and starting to build up all the HMI screens that would be there. And it was me and 3-4 guys in this trailer, right? And we had long work hours, we had a lot of frustrations, but we were a great team. I miss those guys a lot. As we kind of moved through this industry, we definitely got to sit on a bucket, sit in the heat.
I love buckets.
Yeah.
Most comfortable things on the site.
Sure. Yeah. I like air conditioned trailers better. And there were a lot of shocks. So I thought that wineries were these kind of places in Napa that were, very, very clean, and the grapes were stomped like, by hands. And what I was not prepared for was that literally semi trucks come in and dump these grapes in. And then, maybe there's a snake that's been dumped into the crush pit, and maybe somebody hooks that out and dumps it in a bucket and then goes and dumps the bucket of, I'm not kidding, like a bucket of snakes. So there's things you maybe kind of don't want to know. Now that does get filtered out, right? And but it is not like each individual grape is just going in there.
I think the biggest culture shock going into the industry, especially in food and beverage, is like the reality check of things, of like what you're consuming and stuff like that. But that's just a part of the whole process, right?
Those raw materials come from somewhere. I mean, there are filtration systems, there are sanitation systems, but those raw materials come from somewhere. And I really hope that you do get to continue to do this series, because there's so many people that we should hear from, not just in inductive automation, but outside of inductive automation. I would love to hear these stories. When I got here, Kevin McCluskey was already here. He was also one of those first, boots on the ground integrators. So he's done his time sitting on a bucket. And by the time I got here, he was already starting to kind of move over to the inductive side and more into a management role. But I was on site with him. Colby and Carl were already here in the dungeon, so I would love to hear their stories. Travis was here.
Listen, I love yapping, and you know that, as my manager, the application engineering. So I am definitely down to talk to those people, because I would love to also dig into their stories and receive all the wisdom.
I don't even know how Steve Heckman got started in inductive automation. Yeah. I know he invented Ignition because he was frustrated with the software that existed, but I don't even know like what brought him into industrial automation.
So you were essentially cooking with Ignition from day one?
Yes.
Stop laughing.
Yes. I am not one of these, there's plenty of people out there that do have experience with other types of SCADA systems. I don't. I have nothing to compare it to. I do have experience with other software packages that I felt failed me in many ways, that Ignition has just solved all those problems.
You started in this industry with Ignition from day one.
Yes.
So how has Ignition evolved over the years from when you started using it? And what were some of the key milestones of Ignition you witnessed over time?
I feel like it's been very customer driven. I feel like we've seen the needs that are out there that our customers have, and we've filled those needs. And I did not work in factory PMI and factory SQL, but I did work on systems that had upgraded from there. So I was working with Ignition 7 with some of our very early customers, and some of my favorite words are reusability and structure. I love those things in software. And I do remember that there was a time that we did not have UDTs, and we did not have, this is back in the Vision days, we did not have templates. And if you had maybe like a tank farm or, a little repeatable form that you use for all of these little motor setups, and somebody was going to add one little thing, you went back through all those folders and you added that thing, and then you went back to your screen and you copy pasted another one, and getting those UDTs and those templates was so huge. And it's so long ago, we take it for granted now, right? Because here it is in perspective. And now we're moving into the world of unified namespace. So that was a big one. Getting things like the distributed architecture was another big one. When I started, I think one of my first customers had 3 Ignition gateways, and I thought that was a huge installation. And that's And then we started talking to customers that wanted 500,000 tags, 750,000 tags. And that's not even anything now, right? Compared, these systems are so data hungry. So a few things. The distributed architecture was a big one. Getting more ways to reuse things and UDTs, that was another big one for me. And perspective, another one. Ignition's always been web-based, which after going through these experiences of having to go to individual PCs and install actual software, having that web-based, but then seeing perspective bring that all so much clearer to us, that was definitely another one.
I don't know if you've seen my face when you were talking about UDTs didn't exist and templates
It didn't exist, Christine.
I can't imagine
I
doing
embellish,
anything without
we
UDTs.
had to walk uphill in the snow. So first we had to hit copy, then we had to walk uphill in the snow, and we had to hit paste every time. It was that bad.
Like you, my start in this industry was with Ignition. Like one of the day one tasks for me as an intern was go to Inductive University, learn all of this, like watch the videos, learn Ignition. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I mean, I learned what a UDT was, learned how to make templates. Definitely took it for granted.
We didn't have Inductive University.
That too. How was I supposed to, like, without Okay, another question then that wasn't on my Rolodex of questions. So before Inductive University, how did people learn Ignition?
They went to training.
Do you see a lot more people, being excited, and it's easy for them to learn what Ignition is and what Inductive Automation has to offer with Inductive University?
I mean, I think it's always been easy in a way. If you had some familiarity with some sort of software package, I downloaded this thing at home and already could understand a lot about how to use it. But of course, having Inductive University makes it so much easier. I always encourage people that if you can come for a week of training, I think that's incredibly valuable, because I've been at a lot of facilities, and when you're trying to sit down and work through a training program on your own, everybody's coming at you with their day-to-day needs, right? But when you have that dedicated time that you're actually in a class, I think meeting the people here, visiting the facility, it's all incredibly valuable. That being said, though, that travel budget and that week away is not always available to everybody. So, taking the online courses or going through Inductive University on your own, or say new features come out, right? And I just want to go watch the MQTT videos because I've already been through all the other material, but I just want to see this new material. Yeah, that's a valuable tool, and it's free. It's so available.
Shout out to the training department here at Inductive. So I went through training via the Inductive University and also did the core and gold test. So I graduated peak COVID and also joined a systems integrator company peak COVID. So like traveling was not an option for me. So went through those things to get my certifications, but also when I joined the IA, I went through the core and the gold training because I've never done it before. And chef's kiss to the training department because they're awesome at what they do. They're super engaging, and I thought I was, somewhat of a, not an expert. I'll be humble, but I thought I was good at Ignition and I knew the ins and outs. But for both core and gold courses, like I was able to learn a lot.
The first experience downloading the software, even. And now looking at 8.3, I know that at the time of this recording, it's not publicly available, but I've had a chance to start working with the event streams and the forms component, and I am so excited by how this just continues to grow. I would not have been here this long if I didn't enjoy it. I've left jobs before, and if I did not enjoy how much this is changing and growing and how many new opportunities we have, and how I just get to continually learn new things and interact with new people, I wouldn't still be here. And I think that's just such a great part of being part of this automation world.
As an integrator and also as an application engineer here, like things are new pretty much every week, if not every day. There are so many new ideas and so many new applications that I come across, both internally and from external sources like our customers. They have crazy ideas how to use Ignition and what to do with the ecosystem. Sometimes I just look at them and I'm like, I want your brain. You're really creative. I want to think the things that you think.
Sometimes I felt like, can't you just be grateful for what we gave you already? But if they weren't constantly wanting more, right, would we be growing? Would we have that innovation?
Exactly.
And
we are in sales engineering department, and I feel like people interface with sales engineers a lot more during calls and during conferences and such, but I feel like not a lot of people really know what we do in application engineering. So can you give us a little peek into our team and what we do at application engineering team?
Sure. So we like to think of ourselves as a special ops team, but really what we do is we work on applications using Ignition internally, and they are very public, but we don't interact with customers on a one-on-one basis like a sales engineer does. So if you've ever gone to demo.ia.io, that's us. We're currently working on a revamp of the public demo, and we keep that running. If you've ever done the Build-a-thon challenge, that's us. We build the Build-a-thon challenge every year. If you go to a conference and you see a demo, again, that's us. We built that demo. So a lot of those verticals are on our public demo that you can see. We do a lot of the exchange resources, and occasionally we'll get into things like helping customers with some proof of concept. If there's just something that they are, if I could just see that Ignition could just do this one thing, I would be more interested, that would finally seal the deal for me buying Ignition. So we do a little bit of proof of concept. We're working, ahead of time with 8.3. We've worked on some best practices, some webinars. I hate putting application engineering in a box because we do so much. And when I got into application engineering, it was kind of a new thing, and we were ending that era of design services. So we weren't going to do that direct work for customers anymore. Us being integrators and competing with our integrators was going to end. And they described this to me, and I was willing to hop in because I'm still using Ignition to solve problems, right? I'm happy to, that's all I want to do in this world. But will there be enough work? And there's more than enough work. We are constantly just having more work to do. So yeah, we do everything.
Application engineering does the, I guess, like receiving of the set ideas and research and development of set ideas. And also I've been very just mind blown by the creativity and the innovation of our internal team as well. Oh, like, for example, Charles, he is an SVG magician. The things that he comes up with just using SVGs and CSS, mind blowing. And also the data center discovery day that we just had in St. Pete, Florida, just right in my backyard. I know people were talking about that dashboard that was up on the screen during the presentations and such. Who built that? Application engineering.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I mean, we're immersed in, I feel like, a lot of the things that inductive automation does. What are some of the biggest challenges that application engineering team faces, would you say?
Timelines sometimes can be very short. That would be the biggest challenge, because if we have an opportunity where, we have learned about a conference that we want to attend, maybe with a partner, maybe on our own, and we need to come up with a demo very quickly, or maybe we have an opportunity to really show a new customer something that can be done, and we need to come up with that quickly. And our team is just amazing at jumping into that. They are so passionate and so dedicated. and able to work quickly. We're a very agile team, and they have a lot of ignition experience. So, sometimes we just have to react very fast. And I think that's just part of why ignition has been able to grow like it has, is that we can react so quickly to demands and changes in the market.
Pivoting back into the technical things and your experience with the software and kind of the ecosystem, sometimes there are too many cooks in the kitchen. I felt sometimes that the more products you add to a stack, the more complicated things can get. And have you experienced or felt the same? And how does ignition help cut through the complexities that just too many cooks in the kitchen could bring about in the field?
Yeah, I feel like ignition really solves that problem, because there's all of these points where we could integrate, right? If it's a database, we could talk to a database. If it's something where we need to bring in something from some sort of API, we can do that. We have many different methods that we could use to communicate with other systems in your software environment. And I don't think that that's a problem when you have ignition. We can be that central point of data. We could bring in the machine data. We could bring in the ERP system data. We could bring in something from this vision system over here. So I think that having a system like ignition just solves that problem.
I also wanted to say that I love the fact that in this ecosystem, I can see different products work with us, and us approach other innovators and say, your stuff is great, and let's see how we can integrate.
Yeah, and we do. I mean, even when I was working with integration, you could use ignition to pretty much build anything. But I always said, if you're maybe looking for inventory management or PM software or something that there is a software off the shelf that meets your needs, by all means use that, and we will go ahead and integrate with that software. And if you really can't find something that meets your needs, build it with ignition. You have those options, but we can always act as that integration point.
For those who are, newer or marinating in the thought of joining this industry, do you have any sage advice for them?
Yes, Inductive University. And beyond that, yeah, almost nothing changed in the years between the time that I graduated and you graduated, and that we did not hear about this industry. And I feel like that is changing because of educational outreach efforts. I would encourage anybody to get into this industry. You're going to work with real things. You're going to walk around a facility somewhere and see screens that you built in use. And there is such a variety of industries. It's not just one thing. It's not just like a manufacturing plant. It's oil and gas, water, wastewater, pharmaceuticals, robotics. There is, if you have an interest, it could probably be filled by getting into this industry. So I would encourage anybody to look more at getting into this industry. And it doesn't even have to be integration work. It could be building software like this. It could be AI is becoming a machine learning, right? That's becoming more important all of the time. And I think that this is just a huge field to get into. I sometimes hear people say, like, I want to get into game programming, right? Like that I think is maybe like the most glamorous aspect of a computer. Like if you're looking at a comp science degree, right? And that's, if that's what you want to do, I think you should do it. But if you have any interest in this field at all, I would heavily encourage you to get in here.
What would you say are some of the key skills and qualities that you believe are essential in the recipe of success in this field?
Not one person is going to be good at everything. And if you are, wow, great. Like I don't have graphic skills, right? So when we want graphics, we don't go to me, we go to Charles, right? I'm very logical. I like building systems. That's why, as far as the 8.3 new features, I've been most drawn to event streams, tag historian, forms, right? I'm a data person. So I would say that you definitely want coding skills. You want an interest in computers. You want possibly an interest in something like, I've always loved applying kind of business systems to software, but there is such a variety. You could be just very much a coder who really wants to get into something like, machine interfaces, drivers, AI, robotics. You could be somebody that likes more kind of that, how do I design a system for a certain application. You could have graphic skills where, all of these systems that people use, if they're difficult to use, no one's going to want to use them, right? So if you have any user experience or user interface graphic design skills, that's going to come in handy too. So there's a variety for sure of skills.
Coming into this industry and being told you should get work boots, steel-toed work boots, and let's get you on the field and have you experience what it is like on the field. I didn't know like what it was going to be on the field, because like I said, had no experience or any idea what industrial automation was going to be. Like I spent hours in a computer lab or in my room typing in front of a computer. What do you mean I have to wear steel-toe work boots? Doc Martens has work boots if you want something cute cute and chic. I still have them.
I found my first pair at a Western supply shop because they don't make them in women's sizes when you walk into like your typical like boot barn, right? But horsewomen need them. So that's where I found my first pair.
Beyond the like on-site stuff, like every day is different, especially when it's a go time and you're on site commissioning, where like day one, oh, I expected these wires to be wired up so I could, test the IO points. Why aren't they wired up? I thought they told me they were going to be wired up. So how do you, like that's one example. So how do you deal with that? How do you manage change? There's a lot of change that happens in industrial automation, on factory floor, on scheduling, et cetera, but also within our industry there's constant change of technologies, like constant change of ideas. There's new innovation coming here and there. So how do you deal with that?
Communication. When I was a
Yes.
college student, I didn't love that I had to take a public speaking class. I was going to just go sit and program my computer. Why did I have to do this, right? And I was given a good reason, because you are going to have to present your knowledge, you are going to have to present your findings, you are going to have to present to people, you are going to have to communicate. And because I was so shy, it was uncomfortable, but they were right. You are going to constantly be in communication. You have to hear the needs of, whether it's an actual customer or just your internal, we need this demo to do this. You're not gonna just work on a little project by yourself. These are larger projects. You're going to work with a team, and you're going to need to learn how to manage team dynamics, whether you're the team leader or not. And you're going to need to learn to communicate, manage that time. So some of those soft skills are also important.
What is the biggest change you have seen in this industry that excites you for the generations of engineers to come?
One, I think, would be just the sheer size of projects. So, my first experience felt very much like one server, one plant. And now we're seeing many distributed systems, and we're seeing this become international, right? I mean, we had international customers when I started, but we're starting to see this more all over the world. So just the scale alone has been exciting. And the next thing I'm excited to see is more about the Internet of Things and more about AI.
5 questions, just quick ones. And you can just fire back answers if you want. Yeah, 5. Number 1, what's your go-to de-stress food or snack after a long day of work?
We're going to go right back to my roots in the industry. Red wine, favorite.
wind down, what is the most unusual or unexpected place you've seen ignition in action?
Okay, Phil Sabota having a dog barking tool at our data dash at ICC.
That did also throw me off.
It's critical to know if your neighbor's dog is over the legal decibel level.
That was kind of cute. That was really cute. When we saw that resource come in for Data Dash, I was like, dog barking. Number 3, what's one thing you wish more people knew about the automation industry?
I wish they knew about the variety that's out here. I wish that they knew that it wasn't, just walking through a dusty factory somewhere. I wish that they knew that it's all of these things, like I said before: water, wastewater, pharmaceuticals, baggage claim, food and beverage. I wish they knew that there's so much variety to this industry.
What is the most surprising thing that you've learned in your career that has nothing to do with automation?
That there were snakes in the wine pit.
Oh my God.
I will tell you one thing that is kind of, jokes on me. I refused to take typing classes in high school because I wasn't going to be somebody's secretary. And what do I do all day? Learn your keyboard.
What's the one thing you're most excited about in the future of automation?
That thing is 8.3, like a lot of you out there, and I am most excited about some of our new data models, like the event streams. We've dealt with so much of that kind of traditional polling data, and I cannot wait to see what things like event streams bring and things like the new tag a story module.
Thank you, Mara, for joining me in this chaotic venture, episode 1 of whatever this is going to be. Like I said, I always love sitting down and talking to you about your experience in this industry and your vast feast of experiences and knowledge. And for our listeners, if you have any questions, comments, and if you thought it was cringe, leave a comment. And if you guys have any ideas on who I should talk to, let me know. And until next time, keep cooking.